read your bio and it talks about your feature film debut with Pariah in 2011, but no, I remember the short. I remember being in Utah, cold winter at Sundance, and meeting you and Ed Apparel and Pernell.
Yeah.
And great to see this go to here. And I mean, one of the amazing things is like Netflix wasn't like an option then. And I, as a filmmaker, when you see these new services, streaming services like Netflix and other things, like how does that open up the gamut of what you can create as a filmmaker, or does it change at all?
I say thank God for Netflix, because, you know, basically if not for them, this film wouldn't be seen. It's like all the studios were afraid of this film. Like nobody wanted this film. They passed over it, and it's because it was too risky, or they thought it was challenging, or they think the audience wouldn't understand. But Netflix basically took on this edgier story, this independent fare, whereas like before, like, you know, a lack of interest from studios could shut you down and make, you know, and like silence you. Netflix kind of gives voice to auteurs and like is a place for like risk taking. So, and it was funny because back in the Pride days, I remember like we were like in like the competitions, like the Netflix Find Your Voice competition, where you submitted a trailer and you're like trying to like win money. And so like Pariah was in that. Like we like lost it, but then like Pariah was like kept alive by Netflix. Like so many people saw that film because it was kept alive like on the station. You know, they didn't see it in theaters even though it had a theatrical release. Like that was a place where they could discover it, you know, on their own time. So I'm grateful, and I think, you know, as an artist, I just want to make things that last. And so now there's a platform that supports that longevity. Like it's not a 3-month engagement, it's not a 6-month engagement, it's a forever engagement. So Mudbound will be available forever, and like that's like the longest engagement you could hope for. So.
And I wonder, I know you've heard as an artist, you've heard the complaints about movies that delve into slavery, like the slave period is like kind of burnt for a lot of black people. You know? So I wonder, like, how did it feel to take this era, this post World War II era, which hasn't really been delved into or talked about? How open was that to you as an artist?
Honestly, it infuriates me when black people say, "Oh, not another slave movie," because it's like a reductive, narrow way of thinking, and it's like collapsing time. Like, you know, in our narrative, we jump straight from slavery to 1965, and B, because to me it just shows an internalized shame. You know, like we have nothing to be ashamed of, and also we need to understand that the civil rights movement would not happen if not for these returning soldiers who came home, because it was these guys who exposed the hypocrisy of the country, and also who, you know, came home and decided that they were going to fight at home, you know? So I feel like it just shows like a misunderstanding of our history and who we are, and reflects this internalized shame. You would never hear Jewish people say, not another Holocaust movie. You know, I think like we have to keep retelling the stories, and this story has actually not been told. Like we don't talk about the Jim Crow South. We don't talk about, you know, returning war veterans. Like, so name the movie where we're talking about black war veterans coming home and trying to like rebuild their lives. So I would just push back with that and hope that we free ourselves of that internalized shame and like embrace, you know, our collective kind of history.
You, which has Will Packer and Hardy and some other filmmakers, and Tisch School of Arts, which has a number of filmmakers, played a part in your upbringing. And I wonder, like, how much of that was contributed to you as an artist, as opposed to working with Spike on his projects and stuff like where was it the education, or was it the experience, or just a combination of both that makes?
I would say everything. I think like all of our experience like shape who we are. Like when I was a kid, so I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. Like I grew up next to a Klan member. I grew up with like Confederate flags as curtains. Like my first job was at McDonald's, and I worked at a car rental company. Then I worked at Opryland. Then I worked at Procter & Gamble and corporate America before even coming to film. So I feel like as an artist, you can feed on all that and bring all those experiences to like your characters. Like, cause you have many different voices in your head. You have many different like points of view. So I feel like that builds in terms of experience. Like it was also interning for like other producers where I'm like in offices reading scripts, writing covers, so all that adds. And the on-set experience with Spike, being able to like just be on like a major studio set, like all that builds, but there's nothing like doing. And for me, it was like, you know, so Pariah started as a feature, and we shot, you know, the first third, it was like a short. It was like in making the short, which is like the trial by fire and like the learning, and not just of the production of the distribution. Like we took that short around to all the festivals and learned about how to talk about the film, learned how to write grants, you know. And so I think all those experiences of doing really shape, you know, who you are as an artist, and just being in the world shape you.
And just on everything, it's a great project. And
thank you so much.
I know you and Charles and me got Nashville.
Oh, cool.